Hello and welcome to another episode of the Embodied Union podcast. And I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Charlie.
And today we're going to be talking about holding space.
And self-responsibility.
I think it's a really big component of holding space.
And for the person who's wanting space held, I
think this is the part that, when couples start to learn about holding space for each other, I think the biggest downfall that happens is that the very beginning around just like checking in, are you able to, and really like setting it up powerfully. So there's responsibility on both partners.
Yes.
Around it.
And I think because we have a very good structure for how to hold space and for how to, if you want your partner to hold space, how you can set it up really powerfully. So we can definitely get into that. But I just want to share because I talk about self-responsibility all the time. Like if you're on my Instagram, if you read my content, like it's very much self-responsibility. And I'd actually really like your opinion if it's maybe perceived as being, like I know I'm very direct, but is it very masculine? And the reason I ask this is because I know a lot of women are put off by my content when I'm hounding them to be responsible for their emotions. So I'm wondering, what do you think as someone, as I love self-responsibility and I'm also in the practice of it, I don't always get it right, but it's definitely something that I don't want to say just women, but I know women will fight me on it.
Yeah.
But it's not my fault. But he did this to me, or he did make me feel like this, or she did create this, or this did happen in childhood. It's not my fault. And it's just, there can be just quite a lot of backlash when I'm like really holding up the mirror of you have to be responsible for your own emotions.
Yeah, and I think what I sort of, my view on it, or what I see looking in, is that just because like self-responsibility isn't taking the fault and owning it, like I see a collapse in it's my fault or it's somebody's fault and it wasn't my fault, so I don't want to take responsibility for it because it wasn't mine to take responsibility for. However, I kind of have a different opinion on that, which is it wasn't fair that it happened to you, but it is now your responsibility to heal from it and take what ownership you can now moving forward so you're not stuck with it in a perpetual state of victimhood.
Right. So you think that some people have coupled self-responsibility with them feeling blamed. So if I'm saying you need to be responsible, it's like they then feel like I'm making them the perpetrator. So they put those two things together. That's just really great because I would absolutely love to untangle those two things because as you said, often as an adult, we're suffering because of the wounds of our childhood and we can really feel like we were done wrong. And we were.
Yeah.
Because we were a child. We're a helpless child. And some children have really been awfully treated. And as you said, that's not your fault. But as adults, we have choice and it is our responsibility to do something about it. And it's the same in relationship. If my partner is awful to me, well, it's a bit different, but because I'm an adult, I have choice.
You really do.
It's my responsibility to either clean up the relationship or to get out of it.
Yes.
So the self-responsibility piece still, I just feel like it's this big thing where if we were all looking through the lens of self-responsibility, we would be living much more empowered lives and making more empowered choices.
And having a way more empowered relationship where it's like we have power because we're bringing our accountability, our responsibility to the relationship about like, you know what, we fought and I really see my part in it. Not who's right, who's wrong, because trying to find who's right and wrong, and especially my experience working with men is that trying to fight a woman with words is like a woman trying to fight a guy with her fists. It's just like it's a losing battle. It's the word gymnastics and emotional landscape that we don't have the structure for. That's why I'm always trying to help men with not only emotional intelligence, but kind of like emotional logistics of like trying to create some type of map and framework for men so they understand like what logically needs to happen. So we're not lost in emotion, you know? And I wonder sometimes if my thought around this is that actually our society lets women emotionally off the hook and no one's holding the responsibility for their emotions, including themselves.
Well, I think it's this immature kind of childlike wounding that a lot of people have, and that I have, and I've done a lot of work on and still can play out sometimes.
Yeah.
Where, well, I'll just give my own example. Having an absent father has created a deficit in my own psychology. And so when I'm really activated or triggered in our relationship, a part of me really wants you to be responsible for my big feelings.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of awareness around it now, so I know when that's happening and playing out, and even sometimes that's not enough to get me out of it. I'm a lot better than I was. But for a lot of people who don't do this work, when we are triggered, when we are activated, our child wounding comes online, and we're desperately trying to make our partner our parent. We're trying to make them caretake our big emotions and fix it and save us and soothe us, which I don't think supports relationship. There's a big difference between healthy co-regulation and me blindly projecting my big feelings onto you.
Oh yeah, I think that's probably the key of today's topic, really, is like knowing the difference between the two. It's like, am I being it's almost like emotional abusive, or am I being emotionally responsible? Because it's not intentional when we project our child parts onto our partner, because it's happening with you. It's very easy to go, it's you, but it's just mine. I'm only ever in relationship with my own parts here.
Well, this is the thing. I think a lot of people, unless they're really in this work, don't really you're actually not in relationship with anyone. You are only in relationship with yourself. And so even you and I, Lindsay, are in relationship. And it feels like I'm really in relationship with you, but I'm actually in relationship with my perception of you.
Yes.
And I'm projecting my joy onto you and my love onto you, but I'm also projecting my absent father onto you, and my unhealed and unhurt, scared from childhood, and my belief that I don't belong or I'm going to be abandoned. Like, we all do this to each other. We project our stuff specific, like really onto the world. It can be really strong onto our kids, and we do it the most to our intimate partner. And that's why relationship is this gift, because when we're single, we don't have this big mirror here to hit up against and to see all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then when we get into relationship, it's like, oh, it really feels like you're the problem, but you are just excavating the stuff that hasn't been worked on yet.
Yes.
And so I did that other post on Instagram recently where I got completely slammed. And I think I was really taken out of context, because I said, if you want a masculine man to lead you and be in relationship with you, he will not hold space for your every emotion, and that you should be taking your big dysregulated states to your journal, to your therapist, to the women in your life, and to your embodiment practices. And I got so many women in the comments telling me that I was, what were they saying?
Oh, there was so much stuff.
I got completely slammed that I was robbing men from having to, I'm basically saying that men don't have to emotionally show up, and that men have no capacity, and I'm supporting. It was lots of strong feminist comments coming through, and It really missed the mark for what I was saying, because I'm not saying that men can't emotionally hold us. I'm just saying the way we bring our stuff to our man it needs to be done with maturity and responsibility, even when we're triggered.
Yeah, well, I'd even almost wonder, do we actually bring our partner our stuff when we're triggered? Because what I see happening is women are trying to create their boyfriend to be their girlfriend. Otherwise, it's like they want a girlfriend to chat to and to hold everything. And it's like, that's not his responsibility. That you don't actually truly, I don't think you really want that.
And the thing is, find me a couple that are so enmeshed, they're so codependent, and they're like, but yes, my partner is my best friend, and I tell him all of my things, and he sits and he holds space for me for hours, and we process, and I really treat him like a woman. Tell me what's going on in the bedroom. Because when you're that enmeshed, when you're that codependent, when your man is holding that caretaker role in that way, it's putting out it's kind of squashing the polarity. Whereas your man can hold space for you, but it's so nuanced. Like, how much better would it feel if I was triggered and I went and I dealt with the brunt of it rather than directing it at you, which you never should. I should go and like manage and like, so I'm angry. Like, I get to go into my space and like let that hit a peak, have a little rage ritual, hit some pillows, maybe journal, maybe cry. And then I come to you, and instead of being like, and this happened and you did this and this and this, I just tell you how I feel. I'm like, I just feel like my heart is breaking, and can you hold me in this? I haven't made you wrong. I haven't blamed you for anything. I'm being really vulnerable. Like, how does that, do you have space to hold that?
Yes.
As opposed to me trying to get you to sit with me for hours and like really give you all the data and the story and the narrative and to go in circles and to loop. But I think when I'm being like that, or if a woman's being like that, it kind of, I can imagine you jumping in, well then she needs me to fix something because she's giving me all this information, so I'm going to have to come in and fix it, which is usually not what she wants. Nope. Which then just doesn't, it creates a bit more of a problem. It's like, so it's just the way we hold space and share. It matters how we do it.
Yeah. And it's setting it up powerfully before we're in it, you know? And I think if we're going to loop back to like, how do we actually hold space? It's just like making sure we're getting the invitation and getting the permission piece first of like, can you right now? And maybe sometimes our partner will say, you know what, now I don't think is the right time. Like if you have something organized, like we had this the other day where it's like, we actually both had to go. You know, I was running late to something and it was already like, I really need to go. And it's never perfect, but it's like knowing sometimes that if it's now's not the right time, to not cross your own boundary of holding space with your partner. Because I think this is what usually happens is we're right to hold space for a bit, but if there's too much data, too much story, too much looping, it starts to wear thin. Trying to hold space. I'm a professional therapist, like is trained to hold space, and even for me, it like I'm holding the loving presence in the background, and at some point, it's like it starts to activate my own stuff because I'm not able to support or help or fix or solve.
It's not getting any better.
That's right.
This is what I want to. This is really important. So, and I think it's really great that you named that you're a therapist and I'm a therapist, because it really gives permission to the rest of the world that even we fall down.
Yes.
And we are not
so
perfect and we really strive to be the embodiment of this work, and we fuck it up because we're just human, right? Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I have a tendency to do, less so now, if I am triggered, I want you to drown in it with me. I don't consciously think that. I don't think, yes, you're going to sit in this with me. But because I so desperately want you to fix it and save it and soothe me, but you can't, I try and drag you into my story. And then if you buy in and you do, you'll try and hold space like you just said, but it doesn't actually get any better because I'm so in the trigger.
Yes.
I'm not actually willing to repair. So you're offering solutions and lifelines and like, I'm here, and as much as I want you here, I want you to drown with me, I'm also rejecting you at the same time. In attachment terms, this is the ambivalent child who like wants the caregiver come here, but at the same time is like leaning away, like get away from me. And so then we get stuck in that. And so then my toxic trait was eventually you as my partner is like, well, I have to go. I have something to go to. And you walk away. And
so what's the core belief for you is I don't care?
Well, my core belief, one of the big ones I had is you don't love me, I'm not lovable, and I'm going to be abandoned. So I'm sitting in my mad wanting you to fix it because if you care, then you will. And then when you eventually leave, I've got you don't care, and now I'm abandoned. So they compile and explode. And in the past, if you were to exit out, I would then completely implode. I would ruminate for the whole day. I would get so much worse. By the time you come back, whether it's 1 hour, 2 hour, however long, I'm even madder. And nothing has changed for you. You come back in and we are just in it. And like, when I talk about self-responsibility now, So this happened recently. We were having this moment, and Lindsay has said to me, like, I'm really activated, okay? I have this feeling of I know he's about to leave, and he's like walking out the door. So I projected onto you, you don't love me.
You don't care.
You don't care. And so that is me actually blindly projecting onto Lindsay. Like, I'm very activated, I'm very triggered. But Lindsay said to me, I'm not going to tolerate this, Charlotte, and I have to go. And then you went to the boogo, and then you paused, you looked at me, and you said, I love you, and I have to go. And then you left. And
that was so hard for me. Could you imagine what it's like knowing the trigger that you're in and the state that you're in, but knowing it's the right thing?
And that's the thing. In that moment, it was panic, it was hysterics, it was tears, but it actually hit a peak and then it came down way quicker than had you just stayed and tried to hold space. Because when you're just trying to help me hold space, I'm just kind of staying stuck at mad and sad. When you left, I went to explosion and then it came down. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, oh, fuck, now what? Now I'm like, well, what do I teach? I'm going to resource myself. I'm going to tend to the feelings that I'm having in my body. And I'm actually going to go and get on with my day.
Yep.
And then we had time apart. And then when we were able to come back together, we were able to have a conversation. And I was able to thank you for the gift of your no, for the gift of saying, I actually can't hold space for you right now. And I'm also not going to tolerate you projecting at me like that. It's like, as much as that hurts in the moment, that's the kind of man I want to be with. That is a man who has his boundaries, is in integrity. And as much as my little wounded girl fucking hates it in the moment, I trust you. I so trust you. And it's just like, now we've moved through that whole thing. It's just like, wow, I feel like there's a lightness. There's some part of me feels like something has healed in the fact that I'm gathering the evidence that you'll leave, but you'll come back. Yeah. And I can look after myself, and I've got me, and I've got my nervous systems, and I can do it. And that's actually how you build secure attachment. By gathering the evidence for yourself that you have got your own back and that your relationship is safe and your partner can leave and they are going to come back and we are going to talk again and we are going to sort it out. So it's just, you didn't hold space for me for hours. I was forced to take responsibility. Our relationship feels stronger for it.
Yeah.
That's my TED Talk.
It was an amazing process, you know, it was really incredible, you know, and knowing that it sort of started with us trying to clean the glass and work towards that, and just realizing, you know, for me it was just not feeling like I had the capacity to even clean the glass, you know. And I get that can be sometimes a really hard thing of just like, I actually don't know exactly how I feel about it yet, you know. So I think that's important to know for couples that are listening to this, is sometimes we're not actually clear of like what we need or what we need to say in the moment. We might just not feel good. And I know I can speak for men for sure, there's that desire to just maybe shut down, you know, rather than say the wrong thing. So I think, you know, can we even just say that to our partner sometimes? It's just like, feel quite overwhelmed. I don't really know what to say in this moment, but, you know, I would like to, as it's not coming. But then actively ensuring that if you do say, can we talk about this in an hour or two, we actually do go away and journal and get our thoughts down and come back with something, and not just park it,
ruminate,
or not even ruminate, just forget. Like the tendency I think for guys is that we put it off because we're overwhelmed, we don't know what to do, and we hope that it's just gonna get better, and it doesn't do.
I think so for guys, when they take space, they just kind of park it, move on. And I will speak for women and the more anxious women, myself and the women I work with. It's like, we park it, but we don't actually park it. And we just sit and we loop on it. And we actually end up more triggered by the time when we come back together to talk about it. So I say this to my clients. It's like, if you're really flooded and you can't do breath work and you can't resource because you're actually just way too in it, give yourself permission to distract yourself. Yeah. Like, actually go and do something that's productive. Like, don't go into a scroll, like a doom hole. Like, actually do something. Like, even yesterday, I watched a training with one of the guys, a trainer, a coach that we both respect his work. He's very masculine and very much like self-responsibility. And I just sat and I watched his work, and I just like let that regulate me and resource me and remind me of like who I'm choosing to be. So it's like, if you have a tendency when it's like, let's take space, to just sit and stew in it, don't do that. Put a podcast on, listen to something. Don't call a girlfriend who's going to completely back up your delusions and pain. Like, actually do something productive so you can create even 1% separation from you and the trigger, so when you come back to it, you can look at it. Because if you're still just in it, that's the thing. If you are in the trigger so deep, you cannot bring a level of curiosity. If you cannot be curious, then you are not going to move from conflict to clarity. You're just going to stay in conflict.
Yeah, because you're actually in conflict with yourself.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And that's the thing, like having you yesterday in my model of the world not hold space for me properly and then leave me while I'm super triggered, that is actually me in relationship with my belief that men don't care and men leave me. Because what you actually gave me was a gift. And what you did when you didn't hold space was just tell me that you don't have capacity, which is absolutely perfectly fine. Really. My wise woman knows that. And my wise woman also knows that you care. My wise woman also knows that you're not abandoning me. So I'm just in relationship with my projections. And we have to untangle our partner from our projections. And that's why I really recommend like having a coach, having a therapist, so that you can see what is yours and see what is theirs and see like what your beliefs are and this core material that we're constantly being dictated by.
And I think that's the reason why I think a lot of women are really triggered about your work around self-responsibility, because it feels like it lets men off the hook, but it's not about letting men off the hook. It's actually about women just taking charge of their own emotional dysregulation.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't work with men, so I'm not speaking to men. You do the good job with the men, but it's so true. Like, I am not saying that men don't have a part to play and that men can't hold space for us and men can't co-regulate. They can. One of the most beautiful gifts of relationship is co-regulation. And we have to be responsible for the energy that moves through us and the emotions that move through us. Because if we are just going to continue making our partner parent us, we're going to have a pretty shitty relationship down the track that has a lot of water under the bridge and resentment and probably is struggling in the bedroom.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to, because there's a lot of rhetoric around women should be full spectrum women.
Oh.
And don't get me wrong, I believe that we are all full spectrum in our emotions, and we welcome that for all of us to be fully who we are. We just don't make it somebody else's responsibility or make our partner our emotional punching bag.
I think it's a bit of a cop-out, this whole full spectrum, sacred rage, like it's my dark feminine expression. I think it's women trying to give themselves a hall pass to be psychotic. It's the same as being like, I'm on my bleed, or I'm in my luteal phase and I'm hormonal, so you should just allow me to be a full spectrum woman. Yes, we all experience the full spectrum of emotions, and you're not a fucking child. Like, you have to be respectful. You have to be respectful. It makes me feel emotional because of the couples that we work with. And like, as you mentioned it before, when a woman is in overwhelm and if she's wild and like getting louder and crying or yelling or whatever's happening for her, I watch men shut down, go quiet, collapse. Not all men.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's really like women, I'm so for your authentic expression. I'm so for my full spectrum expression, but like, directing our primal raw emotions at our partner is abusive. Can you imagine if you said to me, I'm in my primal masculine right now, and you just unleashed your rage? I would be fucking terrified. It would be domestic violence, it would not be okay. So a woman to be, even if she's not being physically violent, but if she's like even just screaming at your partner, yelling at your partner, unless they've given you permission because it's some kind of process you're doing together, you don't get to scream and yell at people. It's abusive.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of language out there that I think is just giving permission for the wrong kind of expression. It's like no matter what, you respect. If you respect your partner, then you have to watch the way you're.
Yeah.
I'm stumbling on my words because it just feels very heavy. But you have to be respectful.
Well,
If you want to have a
trust,
good
safety, and
relationship.
respect is the cornerstones.
Safety.
Yeah, I think so. I think for both, it's like, setting it up really powerfully as far as like, I will let you do that, but I'm not going to just let you just continue to do that. Like, I fully get. Sometimes it's like, it actually gives me an understanding of like the level of pain that you're in, because I know that your mad isn't going to hurt me, or you're not trying to do anything to me. You're just expressing how you actually are.
And I think this is the nuanced part, right? So if I'm really mad, I could be yelling at you, or if I want to be responsible and move the energy through me, I can go out into the garden or the forest or into my bedroom, and I can still yell and scream and be like, I am mad. But by no means do I have to direct it at you. I heard this really great podcast recently, and the guy was sharing how that is how he teaches his kids. And so he was in the kitchen, his kids were interrupting him, he's doing something and they keep interrupting. And so then he just starts jumping up and down and he's like, I'm mad, I'm mad, I'm mad. And then the little 8-year-old is like, that was some really good mad, Dad. Like, that was some really good mad. And so they're learning that you can feel what you feel and you actually can express it, but there's just no need to be directing it at somebody.
Yeah. And I mean, that can be healing, like you say, but it's definitely set up powerfully.
Oh, there's
to be witnessed
processes
to.
you can do. Like in men's group, I know there's lots of rage processes. In co-gender, in women's, like we actually can. Like if you were to say, I'm here to hold this space, unleash at me, and I could pretend that you're the father that wasn't in my life, and I could just like say whatever I wanted. A process set up like that, yes, we use these processes and they can be good. But in your relationship, just like if you want to have a good relationship where you respect your partner, where he respects you, where you're modeling something functional to your children, it's like process your emotions. Take responsibility for your emotions. Take responsibility for your childhood. Take responsibility for your nervous system. Be respectful.
I think that's it.
Got a bit heated? Got a little bit worked up?
I think it's really good. So how do people find more of your work?
Instagram is my major platform. So I am Charlie S. Hannah. And for you?
I just share memes. So it's Lindsay B. and
Lindsay B. And then the Embodied Union, Instagram and the Spotify and the podcast. Do you have anything coming up?
Yeah, a gathering of men is coming up from the 4th to the 7th of October on the Gold Coast. If you are a man that's interested in men's work and want to come and celebrate with 200 other men, please hit me up about it. You are in for an absolute treat this year. We've got 15 facilitators, including myself, and I'm so down and ready. It's good. It's really good.
I'm going to go with a fake moustache and be Charles, and Charles is checking in. You ready for that?
I am so down for that. Thank you. Thanks, my love.
Thank you.
Love you, Critter.
I love you.